Welcome to Torah Smash, the podcast for nerdy Jews, where our lives of Jewish learning collide with our love of nerd culture. In each episode, we discuss what we lovingly call a Torah Smash, which we have defined as a beautiful collision of one thing from the world of Judaism with another from nerd culture. I am Barak Malkin, and joining me today are
Ethan Lane Miller,
RDY,
Arnon Shorr.
Our guest for today's episode is Arnon Shorr. Arnon Z. Shorr lives in Sharon, Massachusetts, a pretty small town, but with lots of doctors, lawyers, and biotech types. And so when he's asked about work, he just says that he makes stuff up for a living. Arnon is a filmmaker, screenwriter, and an author of comics, graphic novels, and novels. Growing up, he would churn out film after film, and when people recommended that he lean into his Jewish heritage and make Jewish movies, he said, absolutely not. Now, so many years later, his work includes many episodes of the Jewish comedy web series Jewbellish, and the award-winning short film The Pirate Captain Toledano, about Jewish pirates in the 16th century Caribbean. Since then, he has expanded the Toledano story into a graphic novel and has published more work centered around Jewish themes, such as Ben Mortara and the Thieves of the Golden Table, a Jewish Indiana Jones-type story, Wayfarers, which he describes as Moses meets Mad Max, and Beast and the Booth, a thriller centered around the holiday of Sukkot. Arnon is also a big Spielberg fan and would regularly eat at Spielberg's mother's kosher restaurant in LA. One time, Spielberg came in, and when the mom came over to Arnon's table, he said, "You've got an important customer today." Then Spielberg's mother leaned in and said, "Yeah, but I like you better." Apparently, that's a true story. Welcome, Arnon.
Thank
Yay.
you so much. I'm very glad to be here.
good to have you.
so cool to meet you.
I have to say, I'm a really big fan of the work that you've done, the Jose and the Pirate Captain Toledano and the Beast in the Booth and Ben Mortara. All of them I've thoroughly enjoyed, and my kids have thoroughly enjoyed. So it's really wonderful to have you on the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So this episode will be released at the beginning of December, and the world will be well into the winter holiday seasons. Lawns will be decorated, overpriced items will be marked for sale and somehow still overpriced, and our TVs will be loaded with holiday movies. One such movie that makes its way to everyone's home this time of year is the 1988 classic action thriller Die Hard. For RDY sister, Die Hard is a movie about John McClane, played by Bruce Willis, who travels to LA to visit his wife and kids who had relocated there, and he arrives at her work during the office Christmas party. The building is then overtaken by terrorists, and John McClane, a tough New York cop, decides to take on this powerful force all on his own. Every year, the debate arises that Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Don't worry, you're not listening to New Testament Smash, so that's not what we'll talk about. So, what do you think our discussion will be around this incredible film?
All right. I think.
Wait, hold on. Part of me wants to give Arnon the guess.
Okay, so I wasn't expecting that little caveat right at the beginning there, because I think for me, the whole question of the whole debate, which is a silly debate, but the whole debate around, is it a Christmas movie? Is it not a Christmas movie? I think that for me, that's always been a sort of touchy subject as a Jewish guy who, enjoys this movie and who also has a really weird, unhealthy relationship with anything and everything Christmas. And so it does bring up a certain tension beyond the sort of pop cultural debate. And so in my mind, I kind of expected, we're probably going to go there because it's a way to tackle that very question.
Yeah.
That's just very different.
Yeah.
Was that a guess? I didn't hear a guess.
Do you have a guess on what our smash topic is?
Oh, a guess.
Yeah.
I thought you were inviting the guest.
Oh, got it.
We wanted
Kind
to
of
guess.
both. Kind of
A
Yes.
little bit of both. Bit of both.
Okay, so a guess. Wow, let's see. Awkward pause.
That's the end.
I mean, there's, questions of, like most good movies, it has themes of tshuva, which we could explore, the idea
that's
of
nice.
somebody who has behaved poorly, who has to get to the point where he's ready to apologize, but not just apologize, but to actually change something about what he was or who he was. And we can kind of look at McClane's journey through that lens of tshuva. That's one possibility.
Oh, I love that guess. I'd be scared to dive into, does he actually do right by Holly by the end? But Good guess.
Definitely by the end of Die Hard 2, he does.
Sure. It's all wiped away by 3. That's good guess. Not the topic. Anybody else?
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, the movie came out in the summertime.
Yeah.
So it was not intended to be a Christmas movie, even though people say it is or isn't, as Arnon just said. Also, Bruce Willis, at some sort of roast or award ceremony or something, made the very public announcement that Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. It is a Bruce Willis movie, which I loved.
For those who celebrate.
For those who celebrate Bruce Willis.
It's
Wonderful.
amazing.
The movie, as you said, is about John McClane against these terrorists and lots of intrigue and comedy and wonderful things happening. He's hiding in between the levels and the elevator shafts in this like construction forest, and he is on his own, nowhere near armed as well as they are, nowhere, way outnumbered. This is a Hanukkah movie. It is about the plight of the Maccabean revolt and how they overcame overwhelming odds to defeat the Greco-Roman armies.
Yeah, you are spot on to where we're going. Yeah, for today's episode, we don't care if you think Die Hard is a Christmas movie, because we are going to explain why Die Hard is actually a Hanukkah movie.
I think I just did. Episode's over.
Yeah. Welcome to the party, pals.
That was great.
Welcome to the party, pals. Beautiful, Barack.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. First question is for me. What's the right way to spell Hanukkah? I want to make sure it's right for all of our postings.
Oh, no.
Kaf, nun, kaf, he.
Oh, there you go.
That was the right answer.
That's a great answer. Okay, fine.
I think what you're asking is the right way to transliterate Hanukkah.
Oh, sure. Semantics. Yeah.
And it becomes problematic because the ch at the beginning.
Right. I mean, there's no letter for phlegm.
There's no letter for phlegm. I love that. But the substitution is generally ch.
Okay.
The problem with ch is when you put it like that in front of people who are not familiar with Hebrew transliterated into English, they say Chanukah. So, but I still submit that it's proper. So CHAN, one N, two N's, I could be argued either way. UK, I could be more easily argued that it's a double K than that it's a double N. But
Because that's what the dagesh does.
That's where the dagesh is.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry for Jason. A dagesh is a dot in the letter kaf, which makes it a hard sound. But K is already a hard letter, so I think that's much more pliable to go either way. Do
you think Jason got it's the dot in the kaf? Like, I like that you explained. For Jason, here's the Hebrew and
Sorry. That's the world I hang out in.
It's okay.
Makes it enough. So the dot in the Hebrew letter that turns it from a soft ch sound to a hard k sound is called a dagesh. The hey at the end of the Hebrew word, to me, that requires the h at the end of Chanukah.
Yeah, cool.
So if you have the ch at the beginning and you have the h at the end, if you spell it with one n and one k, it has 8 letters. So I like it.
Nice. Oh, very nice. That's cool. Great. Moving on to our topic.
Have I put too much thought into this?
No, I think that's good.
Gonna ask me how to spell Hanukkah?
Why don't you know what? Stay on after the call, Ethan, and you can let us all know. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
I'll take my answer off the air.
Moving on to the topic. So I think the reason it's debated on whether or not Die Hard is a Christmas movie is because the events happen on Christmas Eve, and that's pretty much it. It's a very low bar. So let's figure out.
There's also a lot of music that's Christmas themed. Like
there's Christmas music. Yes,
and the Christmas elements get incorporated into the story. The dressing the guy up as Santa Claus in the elevator, for example.
Yeah.
Ho ho ho.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that the characters are aware of it being Christmas and act accordingly.
Yeah. So I want to figure out for this conversation, what does something need in order to be a Hanukkah movie? Is it okay to just have, like, this one doesn't have menorahs in the background or people eating latkes? And so what would define something for our conversation as a Hanukkah movie?
You know, it's interesting because my very first thought was menorah, latke, and I was like, no. My second thought was, well, focusing on the miracle aspect, like some sort of miracle has to take place.
Right. He only had one bullet to last him, and he didn't think it would, and then he ended up lasting the
Oh, spoiler alert.
right.
So this question of what makes a Hanukkah movie, to me, it echoes strongly with sort of a bigger question, which is a question that I have grappled with professionally, which is what makes a Jewish movie. And the reason I see them as being very connected is that I think there are layers to Hanukkah. Just like Ethan said, there's, the menorah and latkes and the sort of culturally accessible visual elements of it. And then there's this sort of more spiritual, mystical miracles aspect of it. I think that, Christmas movies also kind of have this tension where some of them are much more superficial, I guess. There's a tree and there's the Christmas music and, a Santa Claus-y kind of a thing. And some of them kind of lean into more the magical side of it. And interestingly, within mainstream entertainment, none of them seem to actually deal with the religious side of it. But, that's a whole other thing.
No one recites Hallel?
No, I'm saying with the Christmas movies, but yeah, with a Hanukkah movie, I think it's an interesting question of, because if you go into the religious side of it or the miracle side of it, it starts to take on a very different feel, and I'm not sure which direction. Kind of, maybe they both are Hanukkah movies. Maybe there are multiple types of Hanukkah movies, and it's a broad palette that we could paint with.
One of my favorite Hanukkah stories is actually about the ability to make our own miracles, about how one of the survivors of the destruction of the temple helped trick Judah Maccabee into believing that the oil really lasted 8 days. So without going through to tell the whole story, because that would take up precious podcasting time, suffice it to say that this little protagonist in this particular version of the Hanukkah story is an exemplar of making our own miracles. And I think that John McClane does this in this movie by tricking Hans Gruber and his merry band of villains, repeatedly. And sometimes he gets tricked as well, but he is repeatedly using sleight of hand and ways to listen in, taking notes on his arm and just trying to gather information that way. So he's using all of these guerrilla tactics, the way surely the Maccabees were credited with doing, to make his own miracles. And I think if we look at it that way, I mean, what's a miracle anyway, but an amazing feat that we do when we're finished. And if we are so inclined, we might look up and say, thank God that I was able to do that. Or thank God for giving me the ability to do that, rather than look at me.
I believe a band of evildoers is called a goon. They're goons.
Is that the plural?
Yeah, they're defeated his goons.
And at least there were more than 3, so there has to be at least 3 evildoers to be goons.
Yeah,
there were 12.
Hans and his goons.
Yeah. All right, so it sounds like we've got a lot of leeway here, I think just as the Christmas movies do, to be able to define this as a Hanukkah movie, which is great. So let's move into the plot. So there are many stories that surround the holiday of Hanukkah, and one of them is about the reclaiming of the temple in Jerusalem. So there's infighting amongst the Jewish people, which causes the invaders to gain access to destroy the temple, and then a small yet mighty force win back the temple. Die Hard is the same movie as already what I was just saying, right? So this isn't about reclaiming the temple, but reclaiming Nakatomi Plaza. The invading force, Hans Gruber's goons, takes over and really causes some havoc and destruction to the building. And then John McClane, the small yet mighty force, overtakes them and wins back Nakatomi Tower. There's also a bunch of civil infighting, just like amongst the Jews, right? Ellis disagreeing with Holly and Takagi in the
negotiation scene.
Yeah, in the captured group of people, hostages. That's the name for them. And even with the police chief disagreeing with Al and John, as well as the FBI guys, there's a lot of civil infighting going on.
Can I jump in on the police chief guy?
Yeah, go ahead.
So he said, "We're gonna nail them to the wall" at one point, and I was like, "Wait a second." He also plays the principal in the Breakfast Club, and he says, "I'm gonna nail you to the wall."
Oh, that's fun.
Oh,
I didn't
that's his
catch-
line.
I didn't catch that. That's very fun. Yeah. Anybody notice any other plot pieces that you can add to this combination of the destruction of the temple story?
The destruction of or the Hanukkah story, you mean?
Yeah. Sorry. The Hanukkah story.
Desecration of the temple. I said destruction earlier.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. It's definitely RDY's fault.
Totally.
Any other plot pieces?
Yeah, sure. What about Thornburg and his trying to sabotage, trying to forward himself, which could end up sabotaging the whole thing. I don't know if there's any exact character that does that in Hanukkah.
Who's
Thornburg was the reporter.
Oh, sure. Okay, so that he was trying to elevate himself?
Yeah. Which is also the foil to what John McClane was doing. John McClane was trying to save everybody. Thornburg was trying to promote only himself.
Yeah. Was there somebody I don't know the details of the Hanukkah story that well to
I
say.
think in the sort of mainstream Hanukkah story, it's pretty streamlined. There's the good guys and there's the bad guys, and that's kind of it. And I don't
there's Antiochus, who doesn't appear in most of our tellings, but
Would you argue that the reporter is King Antiochus? No. Okay. Well, then let's ask this question: who is King Antiochus in this story?
Gruber.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean he's the one who goes in. You know, his interest is almost certainly not the hostages themselves. He's after something else. You know, for Antiochus, I imagine he was much more interested in the wealth of the temple than in the people who worshiped there. You know, he just had to get past them or through them or, use them in whatever way.
Okay, great. The next piece I have on here is, Christmas movies claim they're Christmas movies because they happen on Christmas. So let's look at the time of year, shall we? So Christmas is easy. It happens every 25th of December. Hanukkah is also the same time every year. It's the 25th of Kislev. And I checked. So this movie came out in 1988. And Hanukkah was not during Christmas this year. But the movie was released in 1988, which means if it's telling a story of something that already happened, that would be in 1987. And that year, Hanukkah ran from December 15th until December 23rd, just before Christmas. So it's pretty close. I think people are still sort of in the spirit of Hanukkah, if you will. But then even more so, this is based on the book Nothing Lasts Forever. Die Hard is based on the book Nothing Lasts Forever.
Loosely.
Fine. Which was released in 1979. That previous winter, when it would have taken place, Hanukkah began, you ready for this? On December 24th. Mic drop.
You sound like a Talmudic rabbi. It's wonderful.
Yeah, a lot of research to find some possibility of a Hanukkah crossover timeline.
So can I ask a question about this series of questions?
Yeah.
What is the value? Why do we want or need, or do we want? Maybe we don't. I don't know. What is the value of Die Hard being a Hanukkah movie?
Ooh, challenging the premise.
I'll leave that open to people. Anybody
I like
else
that. Arnon, is it specifically Die Hard or the idea of wanting to claim things specifically as Hanukkah movies?
I guess I'm coming from being a creator of pop-oriented Jewish content. There's part of me that loves the idea of finding these sort of esoteric Hanukkah movies all throughout pop culture. But there's also part of me that's like, no. If we kind of start seeing all of these as Hanukkah movies, it's going to decrease that pressure that's building now for more authentic Jewish content out there. I want to see a Die Hard-like action movie that actually does take place during Hanukkah, where you do see the Chanukah, where somebody does get suffocated by a latke or something. I don't know.
Gets fried
in hot oil.
Yeah. The shirt on the elevator would say, "Now I have a dreidel. Sove, sove, sove."
And so there's a part of me that's like, all right, like, let Die Hard be Die Hard. What would this goes back to your question from earlier, which in my mind is a very practical question. Like, what would a Hanukkah movie be if we were to make a Hanukkah movie? If we were to make a Hanukkah version of Die Hard, what would some of the gags be? What would some of the props be? The set pieces? would it be in a tower or would it be in a synagogue? Would it be in some other kind of structure? I don't know.
I think we're just at the stage in creating content, especially movie and TV content, where they're starting to realize how important it is to consult with knowledgeable Jewish people when making these things. And I think that this is exactly the time to ask that question, Arnon. What does Hanukkah content really look like? I would submit it does not look like a Hallmark movie. No offense to Home for Hanukkah, but
We're round and
I
round.
I think there
Yeah.
could be a Hallmark Hanukkah movie.
There is.
And there is.
No, I know that they've been starting to. I don't know that they're good yet, but
No.
but I'm saying like there's nothing about Hallmark per se that would exclude it to my mind from being potentially an area where Hanukkah could be incorporated effectively and authentically.
Yeah, and nobody wanted this very good series. And the bar mitzvah scene in Agatha All Along done very well. And like including with the sound dubbing over it of the chanting until it finally like catches up with where he is. I thought it was beautiful. And so we are learning to consult with people who know stuff better than we do. And I think that's why this is the time that is ripe for that. But I don't think it exists yet.
No, it doesn't.
Well, here's
Yeah.
the other piece. Recently, I went to Juice, the Jewish Comics Experience in New York City, which is a Jewish comic book convention. And at one of the panels, this topic came up of Judaism in representation in film and other media. And Miriam Mora had said, the creator of Juice, had mentioned about when you create Jewish things like that, of the Agatha All Along episode, and people say that it doesn't do justice. I know there are people who weren't happy with that scene because it was one and done and then it was gone. And there were other people who were very thrilled that like there was a whole like, I don't know, 10 minutes of the episode dedicated to his Jewish background. Miriam had said, I hope I get this right, how do you measure what is Jewish enough, right? As a Reformed Jew, I'm not wearing a kippah around, and we do Shabbat on Fridays, but if you capture my life like in a film out and about, I don't do very many quote Jewish things except follow my values and make sure I'm like acting in that way that I want to be seen as a Jew. And so to say like, I think that this may answer your question, Arnon, is that people debate, is Die Hard a Christmas movie or not, for the sake of we have another Christmas movie to watch, right? I think it's a fun exercise to say, are there things Jewish about this property in some way? And I know I'm doing a lot of playful stuff, and I have not even broken the tip of the iceberg yet. And I think it's more of just this, let's explore and see what kind of connections we can make to our history and our past and our values, etc. That is it? Probably not, right? But this fun exercise, I think it just is exciting. I think that's really all
Sure.
it is. Yeah.
It is. It is exciting. I have two things to respond to some of what you've been saying. One of them is a shameless plug. I regularly teach a class called Real Judaism, REEL, where we look at a movie and learn the Jewish values that are inherent in the movie. And I intentionally avoid the obvious. We are never going to watch Yentl or Fiddler in Real Judaism. I'm available for scholars in residence for synagogues who want to bring me out. And I told you it was a shameless plug.
Yeah.
So the idea that we can find Judaism in the thing is also the premise of this whole podcast, that we like to do that. And then the second part is part of the reason, I think, why we like to do that is the same reason that when someone Jewish in the public eye does well, we swell with pride. And when someone in the public eye who we know is Jewish does badly, we kind of hide our head in shame. And that is all about Jewish empathy. We are a very, very small percentage of the global population. And when we get noticed for good, we want to highlight that. And when we get noticed for bad, we want to hide from it. And I think the same thing is true when we're noticing a thing about a movie. If we make it Jewish, it gives us pride. So turning this into a Hanukkah movie is fun. It's tongue-in-cheek. It's part of what we do. But it's also a really wonderful way to show our Jewish pride.
Serious business.
Yeah.
I get it.
reflecting on some of the things that you said, Barack, and RDY, you also said in reply, is I think that we can't necessarily judge it on the same criteria of is this a Hanukkah movie or is this a Christmas movie? Because I think it's different when we are not the ones in the majority. Like there's a different level, different standard we have to reach. Because I think Christmas is everywhere. It's such a like secular, commercialistic consumerism sort of holiday. And so like if you see a Christmas tree in the background of a movie or a TV show, it's just, oh, this is just setting the tone and the time frame. If you see a menorah, suddenly I'm going to be asking questions. Oh, what's that doing there? Which character put that there? What's the background? Is there going to be Hebrew? Are they going to mess it up?
Why are there only 7 candles?
Are they lit it the wrong direction? Yeah.
Yeah. And if there's Hebrew, they are going to mess it up. Just, especially if it's written Hebrew, it's going to be backwards and it's,
So a friend of mine who we were youth advisors together in New Jersey, shout out to Samantha, posted, and I think it was her Instagram today. She went to PetSmart and saw like a little like doggy Hanukkah thing with a dreidel on it. The nun is backwards, and next to it is a letter that's not even a real letter.
Oh.
There was an even better one. Forgive me, Barack, you may have sent me this for the second or third time I saw it, but there was a woman who ordered something for Sukkot, and they reversed the letters of Sukkot. So if you reverse the letters of Sukkot in Hebrew, you get tuchas, which means butt.
So funny.
Yeah, the pain is real. I mean, Barack, you said you read Ben Mortara, one of my comic books. There is a little bit of Hebrew in that, and the letterer who worked on that, who's amazing, his name is Dave Lentz. He's not Jewish, and so I'd send him these PDF files, and for these like little moments, there's stuff in Hebrew in the PDF, and what Dave does is he copies it out of the PDF, pastes it into whatever software he uses, and that's that. When I got the lettered pages back, I found that all the Hebrew was reversed because it treated the right to left stuff as left to right, and it got all messed up. So I sent him an email. I said, Dave, it just reversed all the letters. You got to switch them all back. So he did, except that if there was anything in a speech bubble that was more than one line long, it put the words in the wrong order.
Oh, wow.
So it really took a lot of back and forth before eventually I had to like send him a screenshot of like, this is what it's supposed to look like. Make it look like this. And that's, with me, I'm fluent in Hebrew, know the language very well. But, a lot of those poor art directors in Hollywood, even if they're Jewish, they're not necessarily aware of how sometimes the software can flip things for you, and only find out when you get the angry letters on, after it's been released.
Can I grab the wheel for a second, Barack?
Yeah.
So I just, in rewatching the movie for preparing for today, I just was noticing some really fun things. And again, like flipping through IMDb, noticing some fun things. And one of the things that I found wonderful is that these are German terrorists who are storming the building. Alan Rickman is English. Alexander Goodenough is Russian. Goodenough plays Carl. And Bruce Willis is half German.
Oh, that's very funny.
And they kind of sneer at his Americanisms throughout the movie, too. So again, if they can flip things, so can we.
Can I share, in bringing back of Is It a Hanukkah Movie, some other Jewish connections here. Gruber is my grandmother's maiden name. Right. I also believe that Hans Gruber is short for Hanukkah's Gruber.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I don't know. Do we want to claim the villain in this? I mean, he's a great villain, but I don't know.
He's a great. Was it? I think it was his first film credit. Was Die Hard Alan Rickman's first film credit?
He was cast 2 days after he moved to Los Angeles.
Oh, wow.
But the casting director had seen him in a play before casting him. So he kind of like was invited to audition already having had the part, because they went to see him in the show and kind of whispered to each other, we found Hans Gruber.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I think he's good. And he's a great villain that I'd be happy to just call the cast Jewish. There is a Jewish actor in the cast. I know people like to point those out. So Hart Bachner, who plays...
He calls Hans Bubby.
Yeah, so he plays Harry Ellis, who's just known as Ellis in the film, is Jewish, unfortunately. He uses phrases like schmuck, booby, and he seems to be played as like the negative, money-loving, grubbing stereotype. Yeah.
Completely.
He's doing coke through the whole movie.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the, like right before he dies, again, spoiler alert, they give him a coke. They
Yeah,
give him
a can of Coke.
I was
Yeah.
like, that's so funny. So on the nose.
Ha.
I do think there's another Jewish character in the film that I will put out for all of you. I think the first person to speak in the movie is Jewish. So I'm going to
guy
claim
next to him on the airplane.
I'm going to claim that the guy on the plane who recommended taking his socks off is Jewish.
That character doesn't have a name, does he?
No, he does not. But it's like, I don't know how many of your dads, audience members, be with me here. All the Jewish dads I know come home and just get comfortable, right? And this guy says, when you get to where you're going, get comfortable. Take off your socks, take off your shoes. Who does that? He's at an office, right? He doesn't know where this guy's going, and he says, just take your shoes and socks off wherever you're going. I claimed Jewish dad.
I was really struck by that moment in the film when I rewatched it also for this, just by how this seemingly totally random moment sets up an element that plays through almost the entire movie and that becomes so critical when all the glass breaks in that scene where they shoot out the windows. The whole idea that okay, let's tie this in.
Yes, do it, Arnon. Do it.
To our listeners, he's getting very animated and excited.
Yeah, it's but I get excited about stuff anyway.
Love it.
Got me started about movies. So this guy in the airplane at the beginning tells him, when you get there, take off your shoes, make fists with your feet, meaning get grounded, like get centered, get grounded. And right when all the shooting starts, when the terrorists burst in, he's had his shoes off. He's got his toes kind of in the rug, which means that for the rest of the scene, he's barefoot. For the rest of the scene, for pretty much the rest of the movie. But what that means is that later in that moment where he has to kind of walk across shattered glass and all that, and he cuts his feet and it really hurts him. And it's as he's pulling shards of glass out of his toes in that bathroom, that's when he has his moment where he tells the cop guy, tell my wife I'm sorry. Which is to say that the idea of being grounded, of being like, get in touch with who you're supposed to be, with your feet on the ground. And once you actually do that, that's when you kind of realize who you're supposed to be and how to do tshuva, how to reconcile with the mistakes of your past and seek ways forward.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love that. There's so much of this, such a well-written movie, everything through it. The lighter, like when he finds stuff on the bad guys, right? The lighter, the cigarettes, everything plays into something later in the film. There's nothing
was wasted. Yeah.
Nothing's a red herring. Nothing's a Maltese Falcon.
Chekhov would be proud.
Yes.
The plot was well written, but the dialogue was largely improvised because they were doing rewrites the whole time.
Oh, I didn't know. When he says "booby," when Ellis says that was an improvised line.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I have some. So here's another piece. I will also argue the film's a bit anti-Christmas. Everyone is spending Christmas Eve not with their families. What kind of message is that for the Christian community?
It even starts off with a specific mention that it is Christmas Eve.
Yeah, and the entire office is there. It sort of reads to me as like, while everybody's claiming it for Christmas, this opening of nobody's with their family, like the wife calls home and the kids are there with the nanny, and it seems very. It's Christmas Eve. You're not going to say anything to the kids I don't know. It just felt in the rewatch, I was like, that's actually not very Christmas of them if we're going to claim this is a Christmas movie. So I'm going to argue anti-Christmas movie.
Love it.
It's possibly a critique of, 80s American corporate culture with Christmas as the, like, look what corporate culture is doing to Christmas rather than look how we're not paying attention to Christmas. Like there's something that, and especially in that Bruce Willis is sort of the anti-corporate everyman. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, it's the anti-corporate everyman who doesn't know how to listen to authority, who's not really following chains of command, who's kind of doing his own thing.
That's what my captain says all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but also on that note, I mean, there is this sort of interesting tradition of, certainly within sort of classical Jewish entertainment or Jewish entertainers working within the pop culture space of doing things that on one hand seem very Christmassy, but when looked at through a slightly different lens, come across as much more of a critique. I think White Christmas, the song White Christmas, is famously a critique of the sort of superficial nature that the holiday had begun to take on even back in when was that? Was that the 30s?
Sure.
Somewhere around then.
And that was written. And that was of course written by Irving Berlin, Jewish guy.
Yeah.
Speaking of timing, I'm noticing also that so Arnon, you were 5 when this movie came out.
Yep.
I was about to be a freshman in high school. And I remember seeing this in theaters with friends. And I remember seeing it again and again and again and again on HBO in the 80s when that's all they did was like play the same movie over and over for a year. And so this is one of those just so ingrained in my mind. And in the rewatch, some of the humor is so outdated and sexist and racist and classist in ways that they would never do today. I mean, this Ellis character that we've been talking about a couple times, he uses derogatory terms for Arabs and Jews in the same sentence.
Yeah. But I think in that moment, it's meant to be like he's meant to come across as.
Sure. I think it plays well. I think it plays well to the character. We want to not like him. Yeah.
But even the villains that we read today, even if they're racist, they don't use racist epithets. You would never hear a racist character in today's movies who we want to be like a mainstream movie like Die Hard was use, for example, the N-word. Like we would never hear that.
That's interesting.
I don't know. With Django, I would say Django Unchained had that, and
Quentin Tarantino is
Tarantino is a whole separate category.
Fine. Okay, great.
But even just like the nude photo on the wall in the basement area, I think it was, where he just kind of like taps it and says, "Hello, ladies." Like that's over the top for today's audience. But the movie is very late 80s, and a lot of the things that it does, classic stuff. Even just the exchange with Reggie Johnson, the
Al,
Sergeant
Al,
who has this exchange with the AM PM clerk, or for our Israeli friends, the Ampam clerk. I thought you guys ate donuts. Like it's tropes that we find distasteful today.
I'm not going to dive too deep into this, but you mentioned Al, the police officer. There's a fantastic fan theory that his characters all live in the same universe.
I've heard this.
Have you heard this? I'm not going to dive too deep, but essentially the kid that he shot is supposed to be Urkel, and Family Matters is his like psychotic depression episode of like him letting the kid sort of live on past that time period. And that he was in the Ghostbusters film also, and there's a whole thing about Twinkies, and in this movie he has Twinkies. Like all the police officer characters he play always pretty much eats a Twinkie, and so like proof that it's the same guy. But it's a wonderful fan theory. You should Google it and check it out because I won't do it justice. But yeah, we're nearing the end, and so I have a few more things I want to get in. Well, I will also say when I mentioned the now I have a dreidel sove, fans get ready. I'm definitely going to make that a shirt for you guys to get on our store. It's fantastic. Here's the last Eddie notes on like, is this a Hanukkah movie? I will argue there were at least 8 fires in the film to represent the 8 can. You got the rocket launcher, the elevator chair, the rooftop explosion, the helicopter, his lighter. I think if you went through, you'd find probably exactly 8. It's probably too many to go past that.
He's also counting down the dwindling cigarettes.
Right? You thinking maybe it's a Hillel situation, Hillel Shammai, where we're counting up the explosions, but he's counting down the cigarettes.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe. I wonder how many were in there to start with. I didn't check that. That's a good question.
I think this is one of the nerdiest things you've ever said.
All right, great. So I have one last question for us. We're going to step out of Die Hard for a second. I think that was a lot of fun. What other movies aren't Christmas, quotes, movies that we can reclaim as Hanukkah movies?
I think there's a whole kind of subgenre of the few versus the many, or the weak versus the strong.
Yeah.
The Magnificent Seven comes to mind.
Ooh, very nice. I like that.
What about Rocky?
Rocky is a Hanukkah movie?
It's an underdog story.
Okay, great. I'm gonna throw out Home Alone. Takes place on Christmas,
Oh, I love it.
right?
Good one.
You even got the Happy Hanukkah Marv in there, but that is a invaders coming to take over the place. The small yet mighty force fights back. There's even the infighting between Buzz and his brother. Like the family all is sort of arguing with each other. Yeah,
Good.
They do kind of argue more like a Jewish family than a Christian.
right. Yeah.
I will go slightly squirrely and not argue that it's a Hanukkah movie, but I will argue that The Wrath of Khan, The Search for Spock, and The Voyage Home is a Christmas movie.
You're on the wrong podcast, Ethan.
Well, Spock dies, saves everyone, and then is resurrected.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So, yeah. And we already know Spock is Jewish, which would tie into the Jesus parable there. Yeah. I have one more. I'm going to say also, this other, is it a Christmas movie or not category? Nightmare Before Christmas, the Hanukkah movie. And here you go. I would argue that Jack and Halloween Town are really the Jews and the Jewish people wanting to have this thing that they've seen, and at the end realizing, I don't need that. I'm happy with what I've got. I don't need a Christmas tree. Like the American Jews who want to adopt Christmas, that's Nightmare Before Christmas.
So you're saying that all the Jews who put up a Christmas tree in their home, they're messing it up the way Jack Skellington did.
If they're not Christian, yeah.
I love it.
I want to be very careful, right? I know we have a wide audience. Here it is. If you don't have any Christians in your family whatsoever, and you put up a Christmas tree, that feels to me very much like Jack Skellington saying, I can do this better. I can improve it.
Appropriation.
Yeah. Jack Skellington is doing cultural appropriation, but it feels like the Jews, American Jews, wanting to have the thing that they see the neighbors have, and they go, "Oh, I could do that. That sounds great."
Is that cultural appropriation or is that assimilation?
Oh, that's a good right. Jack doesn't have to live in Hudson.
Such an Ethan question.
Thanks for ruining it for everybody.
I think it's cultural appropriation if you call it a Hanukkah bush. I think it's assimilation if you call it a Christmas tree.
I could get behind that.
Right, the ones that say they can do it better, cultural appropriation. The ones that are trying to adopt and change and become that for whatever reason, assimilation.
Let me also say a word about celebrating our holidays the way they should be celebrated in such a way that you'll never missing out on someone else's holiday. Hanukkah was designed after Sukkot, because they had been fighting and busy and unable to celebrate. So they made an 8-day holiday just like Sukkot and Simchat Torah so that they could have their fun that they missed a couple of months ago. And I would suggest that even today, if after all of the chest beating of Yom Kippur, if you go out with your family and you build a sukkah in your yard or somehow in property that you have, and you decorate it and you bring people in and you sleep in it if the weather permits, and you really make it a joyous moment, your family will never want for a Christmas tree.
That's nice. Any other movies we're going to reclaim for the Jews here? Any other Hanukkah movies?
I'd like to take
movies to reclaim for the Jews is a bigger topic.
Sure. Let's reclaiming for Hanukkah. Any other Hanukkah movies?
Can we give back 8 Crazy
Quest
Nights?
for Fire? I don't
know. All right.
I like that. We're going to return some.
It's so good. Just like us. That's wonderful. All right. So to wrap up, does Die Hard count as a Hanukkah movie? Probably not. But it does have a lot of great connections to the story and the Jewish people. So then, is Die Hard actually a Christmas movie? I don't know. We didn't talk about that. So to paraphrase, Adam Sandler, there are so many Christmas movies out there, but not many Hanukkah movies. With so few options to choose from, sometimes we just have to take what we can get. So however you define this movie, just enjoy it. All we really hope is that your Hanukkah is full of light, full of family, and that you're surrounded by loved ones. And hey, if this is our idea of Hanukkah, you gotta be here for New Year's.
Love it.
Arnon, wonderful to have you on.
So great. Thank you.
Is there anything you'd like to plug or shout out in perpetuity?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. This was tremendous fun. In terms of a plug, if anybody's curious about the stuff that I do, my name is Arnon Shorr, spelled ARNONSHORR, and I only spell it because it's kind of a weird name and kind of a weird spelling. ArnonShorr.com, that's my website. Arnon Shorr on Facebook, on Instagram, on what's the new one now? Blue Sky, whatever it is.
Yeah. Join
yeah.
Blue Sky this week.
And just this past year, I wrote a whole bunch of new stuff, new comic books. I even wrote my first novel, Jewish dystopian sci-fi adventure. So check out all that stuff. I've got most of the books are on Amazon, the floppy comics through my website. And looking forward to having some more readers and maybe connecting with you if you're fans. Have a happy Hanukkah.
Awesome. Yeah.
And read his stuff. It's great.
Yeah, I cannot also give enough credit to Arnon and the works that he has out there. They are absolutely wonderful for all ages. Thoroughly enjoy. So Arnon, thank you so much for joining us. And that'll do it for this episode of Torah Smash. Our fiscal sponsor is Jewish Creativity International. Our theme music was created by Sean Vogel. You can check out Sean's bands and studio work at www.thesleepywest.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to rate and review us wherever you listen. It helps others find us and is an excellent way to support the podcast. We want to hear from you and continue today's nerdy discussion. Go to torahsmash.com to find where to connect with us online, purchase swag from our store, support us with a donation, find previous episodes, and more. And what, do you think you and your pitiful little life can take on all of us invaders, Mr. Jewish American Rebel?
Yippee-chai-yay, Maccabi fighters.
We used to be much shorter, but we can't stop talking.
Who did we just get in trouble? Was it a child or a spouse?
Probably me, actually.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, that was such a fun one.
Yeah, that's good stuff.